Hello and welcome to I Want to Fight Araki, a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure close analysis podcast. And today we are continuing our battle tendency conversation with season 1, episode 12 and 13, battle tendency episodes 3 and 4. I'm going to keep saying it like that for the remainder of our battle tendency discussion.
A very
Um,
exciting discussion indeed.
Yes. With all that said, let's just jump right into the summary real quick. So, as Joseph approaches the Nazi base, he is pursued by an assassin within the Nazi ranks who is ordered to capture Jojo, as von Stroheim seems to have a personal interest in him. Jojo quickly disposes of the Nazi by channeling some Haman through a cactus. Jojo then questions the assassin and learns that Speedwagon is still alive, giving Jojo renewed hope. Meanwhile, von Stroheim is able to successfully resurrect the Pillar Man, whom he names Santana after the Mexican wins, and definitely not after a famous rock star. While
Definitely
Santana,
not.
while Santana seems to display some childlike behavior, such as slipping in a puddle, Speedwagon warns von Stroheim not to underestimate the Pillar Man and that the Nazi major is making a big mistake. Von Stroheim decides to test Santana's combat abilities by unleashing a vampire, which Santana absorbs simply through skin-to-skin contact.
Consume.
Jojo, meanwhile, is able to sneak into the base by cross-dressing and using the confusion his outfit generates to knock out two Nazi guards and steal their uniforms. More chaos erupts in the Nazi lab as Santana has seemingly escaped his highly secure cell. However, after examining the security footage, von Stroheim learns that Santana was able to escape by disassembling his skeleton and squeezing through a 2-inch vent. Santana is able to ambush a Nazi grunt and begins wearing his body as a suit. Von Stroheim decides to cut his losses and kill Santana, but bullets seem to have no effect. After the hail of bullets, Santana extends his finger and fires one of the bullets from his body with the same strength and velocity. Just before Santana is going to kill all of the Nazis with his hail of bullets, Jojo appears and grabs some of von Stroheim's hair, infusing it with Haman and creating a shield. Santana acknowledges that Jojo is different from the others as the two are about to fight. Jojo begins asking Santana for a smile to the shock and utter surprise of von Stroheim and Speedwagon. Von Stroheim says that Santana needs to be destroyed, but Jojo says that he might not be that bad a guy. Meanwhile, Santana barely acknowledges Jojo as his accelerated learning teaches him to disassemble a gun. Santana eventually grows tired of Jojo's shenanigans and attempts to kill him. Jojo tries to fight back, but Santana's body acts as a natural ground, dispersing the Hamon. Santana knocks Jojo out and attempts to absorb him, but Jojo uses this opportunity to unleash a Hamon-charged blast inside Santana, ripping the Pillar Man in half. Santana is still alive, however, and von Stroheim remembers the one weakness of Santana, sunlight. Jojo uses a Hamon-charged chain to drag Santana's top half into the sunlight. Jojo almost reaches the door outside, but stumbles as Santana's body begins absorbing Jojo's energy and begins to reform. Von Stroheim, inspired by Jojo's courage, decides to open the door for Jojo, but is stopped again by Santana's body. In an act of tenacity, von Stroheim asks Jojo to chop off his leg to gain freedom. Von Stroheim is able to open the door, but just before Santana is petrified, he dives into von Stroheim's leg wound and attempts to wear him again as a suit. Von Stroheim is not willing to give up, though, sorry about that, and pulls the pin on a grenade, willing to blow himself up to stop Santana. Just before he dies, von Stroheim tells Jojo the real reasons the Nazis resurrected Santana. They had previously found 3 other Pillar Men, and knowing the damage they could do to the world, decided to kill them. Von Stroheim also informs Jojo that he will need to better himself with Haman, and that there is someone in Italy who Speedwagon knows and who can teach Jojo how to beat the Pillar Man. Von Stroheim blows up, but Santana is still alive and dives directly into a well with Jojo. However, Jojo plays one last trick on Santana. The sun being directly over the well. The sun is directly over the well, and with sunlight from 2 sources, Santana is finally petrified as Jojo mourns von Stroheim's sacrifice. End of episodes.
Yo. I keep forgetting how wild this is. I am so prepared for this discussion of these two surprisingly important episodes. I got my ceremonial robes on and everything. It's great.
It's there's definitely a lot to talk about, but you seem particularly excited, so why don't you go ahead first?
I mean, so in the I remember I was watching these two episodes last night. In the beginning, I was like, "Yo, there's not going to be that much to talk about." I was like, I feel like the Santana fight isn't that memorable, but like after watching it for the third time, I have picked out some few things that I have found quite interesting. Just gonna I feel like we could start off first with the first thing I have written on my slightly less than 1 page of notes, with more about my boy Joseph, and elaborate yet another example of him literally not caring about most things unless they affect him or someone he loves.
Hmm.
He was very, very happy when he found out that Speedwagon was alive. He even little cry a little bit.
Right.
And he was even happier thinking about like, wow, Arena's gonna be so happy to know that he's not dead.
Hmm.
And it's just like, and I have nothing to say about the Donovan fight that lasted like a whole minute.
Yeah, I don't think we
I feel
really
like
need to go
I
into
feel like
that.
Donovan is actually the most forgettable character in the entire franchise.
Probably,
He's
yeah. He's
definitely
definitely
close.
up there with Dyer and I mean Dyer at
Well,
least has a memorable death.
Dyer has a meme attached to him, so like he's a
Yeah.
bit more memorable. Donovan doesn't even have any memes.
Yeah, he just gets strapped to a cactus and that's the last time we see him.
Yeah. And then I have one silly thing written down here, which I completely forgot about because I'm like going back and forth now, like watching one episode in dub and one in sub just for fun because I've seen both of them. I
Did you
watched
watch the meme part in sub
I did,
where
fortunately.
von Stroheim just goes speed wag gone
Yeah, I
like he
tried to
says
write
it.
it out. He's like, speed the wagon.
It's
It's just,
like,
I'm so
all
glad
right,
they ended
calm
up
down,
doing that one in sub.
man.
It was very good. I love, okay, I just gotta say, Von Stroheim's voice actors, both in English and in Japanese, are fantastic.
Yes,
Like, they picked like the best possible person in both versions for him.
I,
They
I've
do him such justice.
I've just been watching the sub for this series. I haven't been going back and forth. And I watched the sub the first time I watched the series, but I mean, the actor is just such a lovable ham. I mean, and I think
He's
that's
just
partly
screaming a
why
lot.
von Stroheim is one of my favorite battle tendency characters.
I feel like Von Stroheim's my second favorite character in Battle Tendency. Like, I feel like it's like for second favorite, it's like him and Wamu are kind of tied,
Mhm.
and Wamu might be third. I don't know, but
I
like
mean, battle tendency has a lot of great characters for
top
sure.
three for me in Battle Tendency, it's gotta be Joseph, Wamu, and my boy Stroheim.
Yes.
What a legend!
Um, so
I hate
I
calling him a legend because he's a Nazi, but he's a legend.
exactly. And so I think that's actually a good place to transition into talking about uh, von Stroheim and where he is in this story right now, because um, we're going to see von Stroheim again, despite the fact that
He
he
blew
blew
himself up,
himself up with a grenade, and
and the fact that like there was
we don't
literally no remains.
yeah, we
Like
don't see any body parts. I mean, I guess there's the
somehow
leg, but like
somehow he well how that I don't how does
it
I
doesn't
mean
explain how he
as he says German science is the best in the world, so
yes. But I actually think this is a super interesting way to characterize a Nazi, because I feel like I've always sort of said like Nazis are just so like instantly hateable that if you can like if a story makes you empathize with one, like I feel like that story is doing something right, in terms of just playing with your emotions. They definitely do that with von Stroheim. I mean, the fact that he von Stroheim is like I feel like there would be a lot of stories where like even when Santana like escapes, the Nazi would still be like, oh, we gotta like harness this power for use against the Allies. But like von Stroheim is just like, no, man, like this presents like too much of a threat to the world. And like the fact that von Stroheim is also willing to, I mean, not only have his leg cut off, but just like straight up die and kill himself in order to stop Santana. I mean, that's like a badass, that's sort of a badass moment. And like you said, I hate saying that because he's a Nazi, but that's what this story makes me feel. And it sort of I think a lot of characters in Battle Tendency, both the heroes and the villains, have some moral complexity to them. It's very different, as we've sort of been saying, to Phantom Blood, where the good guys are clearly the good guys and the bad guys are clearly the bad guys. And I just think, I mean, the first I mean we're gonna get deeper into that as we expand the cast of characters and as we spend more time with Joseph, but I think the first time where we really see like the show go like full on in terms of its these are three-dimensional complex characters is with von Stroheim, who, as we keep saying, is a Nazi. And that's uncomfortable, but it's very compelling, and it sort of makes me wonder what is being said about the nature of moral complexity in general.
It's very exciting because one of my favorite things in the world is characters that are morally gray.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like whenever I see that in anything, I'm like, yes, this is the good shit. I like to write about it a lot. Like most of the characters that I write are never like morally good or bad entirely. I like try to make them a little bit gray because it's just like it's boring without that.
Absolutely.
And you got like, oh, I'm trying to organize myself here. Once again, I've only ever seen like Nazis in media be portrayed in two different ways, and I feel like both of these ways are like the only ways that you should really, or maybe not the only ways, but like actually I'm gonna say there's three ways that like I've seen Nazi. There's three, not two. You either got them being portrayed as absolutely terrifying, which makes sense because it was terrifying.
Absolutely.
And just like, and then you got those that are just portrayed to be really stupid, like in Jojo Rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, they're just comedic. Like the things that they believed were just so outlandishly ridiculous that they just decided to portray them as just being a bunch of idiots, pretty much.
And I feel
Who,
like
just had too much access to firearms. And then you got Stroheim, who was like sort of in the middle, where he was like actually shown to be like not like the worst person in the world, but also not a good person either. Where he's
right.
kind of silly, but also at the same time, like above all else, he admires bravery and courage over everything.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the first time we see von Stroheim in episode 2 of Battle Tendency, I mean, he's pretty intimidating as a villain.
Yo, he literally like he's getting like a haircut or something, or like he's getting like his face shaved by this like lady, and then like she accidentally cuts him on the
Mm-hmm.
face, and then he was like, "Oh, we gotta lick it now," and she's just like licks his face. She really doesn't want to, but it's just like, "Wow, sir!" Like
Yeah,
that's how he's introduced, and then he like out of nowhere just like starts screaming and being really dumb,
and he
and then also
murders.
being kind of cool.
Yes, I mean, and like, I mean, we're gonna get into this, but like, von Stroheim is probably one of the like, I don't know if like best isn't the word, but he's like a consistent supporter of Jojo in his quest to stop the Pillar Men. I mean, he percentage-wise, he's probably in the story just as much as Zappelli is in Phantom Blood, and that's a pretty decent chunk to devote to a character who um, is so like, I don't know. I guess I just keep coming back to the fact of his of his Nazism, and like it sounds really silly, but also like, I mean, I can't think of any other story where this would be the case. And like, Battle Tendency, the original manga was like written in the 80s, I mean, there was still like, it was not people especially didn't like Nazis then, and so like, but like, you still make a Nazi like a major supporting character of this story,
I
and
think
like
it just
it's so
what
weird.
it is very strange to think about, but I feel like it's more like I feel like it just sort of adds to the vibe that Battle Tendency has, because Battle Tendency has such an interesting vibe, and I literally don't know how to describe it. It's
Hmm.
just it's so different from Phantom Blood in the best way possible, because it's like, instead of like, yes, there's the good guys and the bad guys, they're fighting each other. It's like, in this part, it's like literally nobody's entirely good and nobody's entirely bad, and some of them decide to team up and like fight the others. Like Cars, he hates humans, but like animals respect. So
Hmm.
it's like not entirely, definitely not entirely good at all, but like certainly not the most evil thing in the world. And then you
Right.
got like another character who's a Nazi, and then you got like, but he's also like, a chill dude sometimes who does good things occasionally. And then you got Joseph, who is a lord of shit. But it's just like, and he doesn't really care much about the world. He just cares about protecting the people he loves. And like, of course, the Pillar Men were a threat to the entire world, therefore himself and the people he loved. So he was just sort of forced to do it. He was sort of like I'm not sure if I'd call him a reluctant hero, but like definitely not like, yeah, his goal wasn't to save the world. He just sort of did it
Yes.
by accident.
He-
Not by
uh,
accident, but like he just sort of got wrapped up in it and just like, well, I might as well do it anyways.
Definitely. But that being said, I think just to transition the topic over to Jojo, actually, or Joseph,
Again.
is talking about I feel like, so I mentioned at the end of the summary that Joseph feels really bad about von Stroheim having to sacrifice himself. I mean,
Yeah, because he was like starting to like him in the weirdest way. Because he after like watching him be like, cut off my leg, and after it's like, okay, I'm gonna kill myself for the good of humanity. Obviously, you're like, wow, respect.
exactly. And but at the same time, um, like von Stroheim like, I mean, von Stroheim like kidnapped Speedwagon and like
Yeah,
all these things. He's the reason Santana is even a problem to begin with, and so
I mean, he kind of rescued Speedwagon almost.
yes,
Like,
I mean
like on the brink of death, and he was like, I got you. Not
I
obviously
mean
not
you're
with good
you're
intentions. He wanted to get information out of him, but like he didn't
right.
kill him and he didn't torture him either.
Yes. Um, but I guess to my point is that I feel like Joseph is a very emotional guy, and um, we've talked a lot on this podcast about like the role emotionality and like accepting one's emotions plays in the greater JoJo story, and I
The
think
JoJo verse.
the JoJo verse exactly, and I think, and we're especially going to see this in contrast to Jotaro in Stardust Crusaders, is that um, Joseph is a very emotional guy, and that's sort of, I feel like that's what pushes him to like to win at all costs, because I mean, we've seen like Joseph is more than willing to use like dirty tactics and underhanded techniques and trick and mess with people to win the fight. But I think the reason that he does that is because he allows himself to be emotional as a motivator, um, not so much in combat, and like just having that synergy is what makes him so effective as a fighter, and what allows him to you know I mean, we mentioned Donovan briefly, the assassin, professional Nazi killer. Joseph takes him down like within 5 seconds, just because he's like, hey, Speedwagon might be alive and I have to check that out.
He's a
Um,
good man. He's a shitlord, but a good man.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
Um, did you have anything more to add on Joseph?
I do. I feel like the most interesting thing that happened when it came to like Joseph's development, of course, it was him at the end being like, "Oh no, Stroheim, I'm sad now,"
Hmm.
and I feel like the something even more interesting in that was how when he goes to save Speedwagon, and there's just this very muscly, almost completely naked man there who is just like killing everyone. It's just Santana's there, and he's just like, obviously this guy is dangerous, and he just starts like messing with him
Hmm.
and just like saying stupid stuff. He literally just walks up to him and just like boops him on the nose and says, "You're
Yes.
it," and
Yes.
and then he's just keeps messing with him, and then like Speedwagon is like, "Child, what the hell are you doing? You're gonna die." And then he's just like, well, he's not all that bad, maybe he could be reasoned with. And I thought that was really interesting because he's like kind of a temperamental person. And of course, after Santana ends up threatening Speedwagon, he's like, okay, I have to fight you now. But he seemed to want to, like, since Santana hadn't done anything to him to like piss him off, he didn't want to fight him. Like, the first thing that he picked was diplomacy over fighting, which I thought was pretty interesting. And it was
Hmm.
like, I feel like Jonathan in part one actually went for fighting first. Because there was many times where he just like went at Dio out of like, not out of nowhere really, but just like, instead of trying to like talk things out, they were just like, I will fight you now.
I think at first, he Jonathan is like,
Yeah, he's
he
like, we
wants to
should get
be Dio's.
along.
He wants them to get along, but it certainly it feels like it happens much quicker where Jonathan just goes full on. I hate Dio's guts. I want to kill him. Compared to like
Yeah,
Joseph.
it took Santana like a couple of like a couple of dangerous things for Joseph to actually be like, okay, this guy's dangerous. I have to take him
Right,
down. Like, he did at least a couple of things. It's like it was he like probably like hurt a few Nazis. He didn't care about the Nazis, of course, because like he doesn't know them and
right.
they're also Nazis. But then like he goes after Speedwagon. He's like, all right, I got you bad news now.
He's a bad mamma jamma.
But yeah,
Um,
like despite the fact that he's so emotional and temperamental usually, it's I guess it's because Santana didn't piss him off or didn't like threaten him or Speedwagon. He was just like, well, I don't feel like fighting right now. I just diplomacy.
right.
Like it's interesting because he doesn't like assume he's a bad guy.
Which I mean, considering everything. I mean, like not that Joseph knows a lot about the nature of the Pillar Men yet, but just like hey, this guy's got a connection to Straitso. He's got a connection to the Stone Masks. Like those are all like really bad things, but like he's still kind of willing to like be diplomatic or at least like don't mess with me, I won't mess with you type of situation. And I think it's pretty funny. It's pretty
It
funny, and I think it says a lot about the character.
it really does. I don't know like exactly what it says. I'm trying to figure that out right now as we speak. But I just like I remember I was watching it yesterday. I was like, wait, this is more interesting than I thought it would be.
I think it's another show of, I mean, at least it's the way I am sort of reading it. I think it's just another show of Joseph's intelligence. I mean, it's a lot smarter to like diffuse a situation without fighting. And we sort of see like it's just kind of in Joseph's nature not to fight like directly. I mean, he's always trying to find an angle or a trick or something that will separate him from like having to like go full on into fisticuffs.
Yeah. I feel like you could also say something about his intelligence in a slightly different way, when it comes to him, like, just having the ability to predict what everyone is going to say.
Right.
I feel like because of that, it's obvious that he's very good at getting into people's heads and seeing things from their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that ability, just like, or just that way of thinking that he has, that allows him to see things from others people's perspective and sort of get into their heads and realize why they'd be doing the things that they are doing. He realizes that, like, obviously because of that, you can't ever assume that somebody is good or bad. And he knows that nobody is either really entirely good or entirely bad. Because once again, the Pillar Men didn't really, despite the fact that they're like doing terrible things, they're not like, when it comes to this, I think like the cruelty that we see in most JoJo villains, they're like less cruel in a way.
Yeah, they're not maniacally laughing about their
Well, actually, one of
plans.
them is.
Well, yeah, for sure. But I mean, I I mean, even Cars, who is, I would say, the most maniacal, that's not all he is, you know.
It's like, I feel like the Pillar Men have more of a reason to be angry at humanity.
Right.
This is where I might want to transition into an interesting thought that I had. Environmentalism.
Yes, I'm
JoJo Part
interested.
2.
I'm interested to see what you have to say about this because I'm going to be honest. Environmentalism was probably like the furthest thing from my mind when I was watching these. But go ahead.
It just like appeared. So I have like several things. One of them going back to like Stroheim. So I just like, after like watching Stroheim, like once again, you got like the Nazi scientists. They're trying to sort of be gods in a way. They're trying to do things that are unnatural. Like, even if you like, y'all know about history and what the Nazis did,
Mm-hmm.
and how they did a lot of very screwy experiments, and how they wanted to literally like take over the world, and like all that Nazi mumbo jumbo, whatever kind of bullshit.
Right.
So you got, and they're also, not to mention, because of that, incredibly egotistical, like
Mm-hmm.
to a fault. And it's, human ego, a god complex, trying to control nature. And you almost got like the Pillar Men that like are nature. And in a way, because they're sort of like, you notice like Cars, once again, he's totally fine with killing people, but he's the only JoJo villain to not murder a dog. He saves a dog. Like, so you got that. He literally like saves a dog and kills the people that almost killed the dog, just because, the dog was innocent. And something interesting that me and my classic literature, Mark Twain believed that humans were the only creatures on Earth that were capable of being evil, because we had like a conscience, and because we have higher thought, we are the only animals that can choose to be evil. Whereas animals can't choose, and most of the time they're just doing that to survive, so they cannot be evil nor good. So they're just innocent, while people are not innocent.
I think that's...
I'm trying to organize my notes here.
Well, while you're doing that, all I'll add is, I mean, that's really interesting. I think especially thinking about Santana and the eventual rest of the Pillar Men as nature, because, I mean, you think about, like, Santana is in this, like, I mean, for the time, obviously, it's like 1930-something. The cell that he's in is, like, super advanced. It's got, like, flamethrowers and, like, bombs and, just insane amounts of weapons and technology. And, like, he gets out, like, super easily.
It's another interesting point you're bringing up, because generally, coronavirus TM, how since people aren't really, I don't want to sound like too much of a crazy environmentalist. I mean, I guess you could consider me that, but I'm not like that crazy. I'm kind of crazy, just a tiny bit. Like,
as long as you're not knocking on my door with Greenpeace, I'm okay.
I am not doing that. I neither have the time nor desire to do that. Where was I going with this?
You crazy environmentalist. You were going to say something.
What was I going to say before that? Oh my god!
I brought up the Santana in the cell and how he gets out.
Yes, how like coronavirus people are not occupying things anymore, and like it's very easy for nature to take something back.
Mm-hmm.
They like you ever like hear or like see any of the videos for like Chernobyl now? Like animals have taken it over, like the buildings are all like covered in plants, and
Oh
literally
yeah,
like
yeah,
there's like
yeah.
wild wolves living in this radioactive area, and they're all just vibing.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's getting all what's that movie? Annihilation, I think.
it's very easy for nature to take back the world, and I feel like it's weird symbolism here where like obviously the pillar men, they don't really, they're sort of like indifferent to, or at least have respect for other animals because they're like innocent and not evil.
Mm-hmm.
But their main goal, they don't really want to hurt any of the animals or the plants on the world. They want to like I forgot whether they wanted to kill all of the humans or if they wanted to like just sort of like, I don't know the right word, like just colonize the world again and just control all of the humans. I forgot what they were trying to do, but either way, their only target was humans, and it was like you can sort of like
Well,
interpret that as nature taking, you know, getting very annoyed by how especially the Nazis TM are treating the world and being like, okay, the pillar men be waking up now because of their insane curiosity. It's like it's not even like some like earth god just being like, ah yes, I need to kill them now. It's just because that they were a little bit too curious and a little bit had too much of a god complex, so they decided to bring back these pillar men, not knowing, you know, what they would do. It's also goes into like, you know, sometimes people get too curious and do things that they shouldn't do. Like some
mm-hmm.
people are trying to create a black hole on Earth right now. Why would you try to do that? That's not a very good idea.
um,
Just, you know, doing something that blows up in your face, you kind of deserved it, you know?
yes. I think I just had a couple, one or two quick thoughts about the Santana as nature, or the Pillar Men as a whole as nature metaphor. Is you think about like Santana is he's not wearing any clothes really, except for like a little cloth
He's
covering
got a
his.
loincloth.
He's got a loincloth going on, so like he is very, like he's not wearing anything manufactured, it's all natural sort of.
He's got horns, which is interesting.
He's got horns, but those horns are like a part of his biology as well.
Yeah, that's so. I don't. The
um
pillar men have horns. That's just like a very like strange little detail. That's
yeah,
just vibing and like
it's weird.
okay.
um
I mean, it's kind
so
of cool. They're supposed to be like demons, like thought of as demons or gods by the Aztecs. You know.
right. And then the other thing I was thinking of is like like Santana barely acknowledges everyone else. Like we have these two episodes dedicated to this Santana fight and conversation. I think Santana maybe says about like 20 words in total. I
Yeah,
mean,
Santana's low key like pretty interesting, but no one like cares about him.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like
I think my
literally, he
point,
just wait. Continue.
well, just to wrap up really quick, and then you can go, is I guess just my point is like he's indifferent to what's going on. And that's sort of like, well, he's indifferent to what's going on up until JoJo comes into the picture. But I think that indifference sort of again is another tie-in to him being as nature. Like nature doesn't care. Like it'll
It just
kill
vibes.
you. It'll take you. It'll take over Chernobyl. It just vibes exactly.
It's just like if you let it grow, then it just will. Let's
Hmm.
just talk about the Lorax now. You know that song. One of my
uh,
favorite things in the world was is I love the Lorax. It's so like it's actually like it kind of slaps, but it's also really stupid.
you're talking about the movie.
Yes, the movie. The Dr. Seuss book is great, and I vibe with it. But like the movie is just like you got that guy who's like, let it die, let it die, let it shrivel up and die. And then you got, all right, I'm gonna
Taylor?
stop talking about the Lorax now.
Yeah, not to go off on a tangent, but isn't Taylor Swift in that movie?
I don't
He's like
know.
the love interest or something.
Probably.
Anyway,
Anyway,
JoJo.
I feel like like all the Pillar Men are actually like kind of interesting. Like I made this point in the last episode where it's like if it was just one of them, then it would just be like eh. But I feel like just the four of them combined are interesting. Like on their own, each one of them is not that interesting. But you know, combined they kind of are. You got they're all like very different from each other as well. That's something I've noticed recently. Like they're all so different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And Santana's like a child in the weirdest way because he is like I guess the youngest of the Pillar Men. He's like a child kind of.
Yes, I believe that's true. Yeah. And
You know,
then,
one of the ones that Cars and AC/DC raised. And he was just like literally vibing around, just incredibly curious about everything. Like
mm-hmm.
he doesn't seem to like look down upon people. He kind of does, but at the
Well, I
same,
don't
he's
know.
more. He looks. He's not like. I guess he does look down upon them. He's just not like malevolent.
He has a
Like
more, he's more like naturally interested in the world compared to um, the future Pillar Men who are more focused on, world domination. Like, they don't really have an interest in like the world and learning things and stuff like that because I think it's especially, I mean, we're not quite at it yet. I think it's in the next two episodes that we're going to be looking at.
yes,
But I believe when the other three Pillar Men are brought back and resurrected, they don't act like Santana acts when Santana is brought back.
Santana's just like literally he like trips, and
Yeah,
he's
he
like,
like
"Where am I?" He's
trips
just like
and
very confused, obviously, because he did not wake up where he went to sleep.
oh God, what happened in the last 1,000 years?
It's like, you know that Vine where it's just there's this dude sleeping on an air mattress and a bunch of his friends just like take the air mattress and like push it out into like the middle of a pond, and he wakes up just in the middle of a pond and he screams. But yeah, I mean, if I was Santana, I'd be a bit alarmed as well, because like instead of like being in a pillar and you're like in this cave in the jungle, it's just like you're in this giant metal fortress. I'd be like, huh. But obviously, he's like totally confident in the fact that he's not gonna die, even though he pretty much does, because you know they're like humans. They're not they're harmless.
Right.
Like that's why I thought that he's like maybe doesn't look down upon them. It's more like he just doesn't see them as a threat. Maybe he
Yeah.
does.
I mean,
They're just like another animal to him.
I think he calls them like lesser beings or like inferior beings or something like
Ah,
that. But I mean, I do think what you're saying is right that he, again,
he
he
thinks of them
barely
as like
acknowledges them.
cows.
Yes, exactly. That's a good
Just
way
like
of putting it.
yes, I can eat them if I want to, but I'm just gonna vibe around. What is this gun? I'm gonna
I'm
take it
gonna take
apart now.
apart.
I'm gonna take this apart and just figure it. He actively tries to figure out how things work just because he's just like obviously confused and very curious. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to portray him.
Yes, I would definitely agree. I mean, yeah, it's funny. We were sort of saying before we recorded this that like Santana is like we didn't think we would have a lot to say on Santana.
I didn't think I would either, and then I like started writing notes vigorously last night.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's really interesting. I don't know, praising ourselves there, not really what you
It's
guys are
good
here for.
stuff. See,
Um,
we're allowed to have intelligent thoughts every once in a while. We
um,
are permitted occasionally to
on,
have a
on
brain cell.
once every blue moon. Um, let's see. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, or you want to get into more of the sillier stuff in these
Ooh,
episodes?
I have. Hold up. I'm sure. Okay, I have one more semi-serious, actually serious thing. Um, about Stroheim and Joseph and the relation between those two. They're both very gutsy, and Stroheim is even more gutsy. He's an absolute mad lad, as we would call him. I like in the end when Stroheim's literally about to blow himself up as a treat. He literally just starts referring to Joseph as Englishman, and I feel like referring to him as that sort of like, I don't know the word for it. It just brings more light to the fact that I forgot exactly what year it takes place in, but England and Germany are like either at war or about to go to war.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just like, but at the same time, they like sort of created this camaraderie between the two of them just to take down this common enemy. So I feel like just like the fact that he just calls him Englishman just sort of like shows that yes, the two like these are literally like two, like I guess you could say natural enemies, and yet they're collaborating for the greater good. And like that Stroheim, like despite being once again a Nazi, has has like trusts Joseph to tell him this information because he trusts that he could save the world from the Pillarmen. Despite being a literal Nazi, he still values the glory of humanity itself above all else, and just general bravery. And he does another little quotey thing here. They always be quoting stuff. Some Greek philosopher, Plutarch, I think.
Yes.
Stroheim quotes him. Says, "Human greatness lies in the ability to face one's fears." And I was like, "Good for you, sir." That's what he believes in, and that's just that like last quote that he pretty much said before he died. He doesn't die. He does not die. He comes back.
Dies for now.
He's dead for now. Like that quote just like sums up what he's all about, is that despite the fact that once again he's a Nazi, that he once again like the thing even above the fact his beliefs in Nazism and like that German science is the greatest in the world, there is something that he believes above that, and that is once again that human greatness lies in the ability to face one's fears. Basically, the reason people are great is because they have the ability to be brave.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I also think that quote is especially poignant in these two episodes where I think these are probably the scariest and freakiest episodes.
They got some body horror going on.
Yeah, I mean, the image of Santana squeezing his body through the vent, the first Nazi that he like starts wearing as a suit.
It's just disturbing.
There's a part where I can't remember if it's that Nazi or some other Nazi.
I don't know which Nazi.
Other Nazi. Whose Nazi is it anyways? There's a part where it's like shot from the back, and like the dude's back is just like freaking out, like it's just stretching, and I mean it's really pretty terrifying the first time you watch it.
Part 2 has a lot of body horror.
Yes. But
like all the parts kind of have a lot of body horror, but like part 2 especially.
He sort of faces that ultimate, not just fear of Santana, like messing up his body, but just like death in general.
Okay.
I
gotta say though, if I could not watch JoJo if it was anything but 2D animation.
Yeah, God.
If it was 3D animation, if it was live action, no, I refuse. Like I'm very squeamish when it comes to like gore in like 3D and like live action stuff. But like the fact that it's 2D makes it like incredibly tolerable for me.
We've debated a lot about whether or not we're going to cover the Diamond is Unbreakable live action movie.
Oh no, we are going to. I want to.
All right, we're deciding it now.
We're doing it. I'm deciding it right
Diamond
now.
Is Unbreakable
we're definitely going to be having some hiatuses because Stone Ocean. So obviously we're going to cover that stuff. We're going to become a gaming channel for a short period of time.
Crossover
very
with
excited for that.
Anyway, we can get all into that later. I kind of want to talk about some of the. Uh, well, let's just talk about the silly stuff in these episodes.
Speedwagon.
Speedwagon. What?
It's so good.
It's hilarious, but why?
Why not? That is the question that you should be asking.
That's true. The part where this is kind of silly, kind of disturbing is Santana is able to control his ribs and like shoot
Oh,
out from in front of him and like try and
that's like his
crush.
signature move, and he uses it once.
Yes, and it's like it's just such a like what the hell moment.
Well, all the Pillar Men like have this ability to do like there's that one like special ability that they do, and it's always something really gross. Except
Well, except
Wamu's isn't
Wam's.
very gross.
Yeah.
It's like slightly gross. It's like he just like tubes and lungs and wind.
It's gross if you think about it, because
It's
that's
gross
all
if you
part of his
think about it,
biology.
but it doesn't look that gross. And then you got like Santana's just like rib, and then you got like Cars. Cars doesn't look that gross. It's just like, yes, my bones will become very sharp and come out of my arms sometimes, but it actually looks kind of cool.
We're not at the
AC/DC.
Yeah, which we've already talked about before on this podcast. How gross
has the grossest powers in JoJo, like one of the grossest. It's like, then you got like Babyface in Part 5, which is really gross.
Oh yeah,
for like a different reason, but it's still gross. Then you got there's so many gross powers in JoJo.
So there's that. I'm trying to think what. There's a part where von Stroheim is like, oh, I remember what happens. Santana trips and falls, and because of the water from the sprinkler system, and von Stroheim, his voice actor in the sub, just loses it. I mean, he is cackling like a madman.
And it's not even like a scary sort of cackling. It's just like very stupid.
Yeah, it just like makes me like snicker every time I get to that part.
Literally, Santana's just vibing. He literally like it's interesting to see like, yes, it's still. I mean, it makes sense for Stroheim to find it funny because one, people falling over is just a funny thing, and then two, it's like Santana's like, yes,
yeah, that's the other thing.
People in the olden days used to think of me as a god, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna fall now.
Santana's like trip and fall is so like deadpan, like it's the first thing that we see Santana do, and his face is like straight, like
he doesn't care.
He falls. It's so wacky.
Oh gosh, part 2 is great.
The fight with Donovan is super wacky.
Cactus explode.
It's a weird thing, but like every once in a while there will be a throwaway JoJo villain who's just really into showing off their tongue. And Donovan is that character for Battle Tendency.
You got that. Oh, I want to make a list of all of them now. I'm going to make a list of all the weird tongue people, and I'm also going to make a list of who I think are the most well-written characters, and Stroheim is at least in the top 10, I think.
For sure.
He's up. He's like, he's not nearly the highest, but he's like, he's on the list.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god, we barely talked about the cross-dressing, didn't we?
Oh my god, wait, how could we forget about that? I literally have it written down here. He's literally... my boy just doesn't have any shame at all. He doesn't care. He was like, he knows it won't work. He just feels like doing it because it's fun, He's just vibing.
And I love that he is personally, like, so like the Nazi guards are, he's got tequila first off, and then the Nazi guards, and then the Nazi guards, are like insulting him, like, oh, like you're so ugly, like what are you even trying to do, man? And he's like personally offended by that.
He was like, hold on, I thought I was a very beautiful woman. Excuse me.
The other thing that I think is kind of funny is to like like in the beginning, he uses the Haman charged Coke bottle to deal with the police officers, which, by the way, just thinking about it, the police officers and these two Nazi guards like have quite a resemblance
Similar
between
vibes.
themselves. Like there's a fat one and there's a skinny one.
And they're also both kind of, either
Terrible.
sexist or racist, one of the two, or both.
Exactly, some form of bigotry. And so, like he charges the tequila bottles with Haman, but instead of using the corks to knock out the Nazis, he uses the corks to hit a coconut tree, and then the coconuts hit the Nazis. Which I don't even know if it's possible to have coconuts in the middle of the Mexican desert.
Yeah. I don't think coconuts grow around there. I'm pretty sure they don't.
Probably a safe assumption not to.
Thomas, am I giving you flashbacks to college? I used to constantly sing that, just like literally when I don't have anything to say, I just start like singing Tequila. Like every time we were walking down the street, at least once.
Yeah. I don't even know how to fully respond to that on this podcast, so I'm just gonna
you don't have to
move past it.
You don't have to.
So also speaking of things in the middle of the desert, why is the base where it is? It's just that like one building and nothing else for miles. And like
I mean, the Nazis, they want to be sneaky.
But it's not that. It's one building in the middle of it's not that sneaky.
That's true. I mean, and there's also like roads around there. My boy had a motorcycle.
I guess it's just the way it's shot makes it look like there's nothing else around. And there's like women there who are trading stuff, and like yes. Where did they come from? Like
they walked several miles. They're badasses.
That's fair, yeah.
They walked several miles. Or maybe it wasn't several miles. Who knows?
The one hypothetically badass woman in this part, but almost there.
And also, I feel like Arena is, as I've said once again, Arena is a badass. She doesn't even fight, but she's just a badass for other reasons.
That's true.
Lisa deserved better.
Seriously. We're gonna get to that.
We're gonna be talking about that though. I think both of us have words.
Absolutely. All right. So, do you have any last minute things to add?
I do not think I do.
Okay. So, with all that said, if you want to follow me, see all the silly stuff I talk about, you can follow me at Thomas M. Brickman on Twitter. I also do another podcast with my buddy Kevo called Post Game Content. You can find the podcast. You can listen to it on YouTube. You just search up Post Game Content. You can also follow updates for that podcast at Post Game Con. That's at Post Game CON on Twitter.
Oh, you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, so you can see all. So I try to alternate with my tweets, where it's like it'll be funny and then insightful and then depressing. So if you want all of that, you can follow me on the tweet at Emily Winkles. That's it.
And if you want to see all the hilarious memes, the updates, everything that we're doing regarding this podcast, you can follow the social medias for that at I Want to Fight Araki on Instagram and I Want to Fight AR1 on Twitter. Keep up with the show, all the goings on. And I believe that is it. With all that said, we're Gucci. Hold on. I have something to say after we're done recording that. We're done recording, but
I know what it's gonna be about too.
Yes. But regardless, we'll see you guys next time for when we cover JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Battle Tendency episodes 5 and 6, Season 1, Episodes 14 and 15. We'll see you guys then.